In the heart of a bustling Zongo community, nestled among the labyrinthine alleys and crammed buildings, stood a grand old compound house known simply as the Yard. This sprawling abode, with its 8 rooms arranged in a tight circle around a common courtyard, was home to a lively group of tenants, each with their own quirks and peculiarities. Life in the Yard was never dull, but it came with its fair share of challenges, and the residents often found themselves in the midst of what they fondly referred to as compound house wahala. It was a typical morning in the Yard. The sun had barely risen, yet the compound was already alive with activity. The air was filled with the sounds of roosters crowing, women chatting as they prepared breakfast, and the occasional argument over whose turn it was to sweep the courtyard. Amid this chaos, Kwame, one of the tenants, found himself in a particularly frustrating predicament. He stood outside the communal bathroom, staring at the pair of old, mismatched slippers that the landlady, Madame Akosua, had placed there. In the Yard, there was an unwritten but strictly enforced rule. No one was allowed to enter the bathroom with their personal slippers. Instead, you had to use the pair provided by Madame Akosua. The problem was that these slippers had seen better days. One was missing half its sole, and the other had a strap that threatened to snap at any moment. Kwame sighed, knowing he had no choice but to comply. The last tenant who dared to defy the slipper rule found his belongings mysteriously soaked in soapy water the next day. Grudgingly, he slipped his feet into the raggedy sandals, wincing as the cold, damp rubber met his skin. As he shuffled into the bathroom, he couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Only in the Yard, he muttered to himself, shaking his head. The Yard's communal bathhouse was another source of daily drama. With 8 adults and numerous children sharing a single bathroom, things were bound to get messy. But nothing prepared the tenants for what they began to discover in the bathhouse. It started innocently enough. Afia, a young mother living in the Yard, entered the bathhouse one morning, ready to start her day. As she stepped inside, she was greeted by an unpleasant surprise: a small pile of poo left carelessly in the corner. Shocked and disgusted, Afia quickly retreated, nearly tripping over herself as she fled the scene. Word spread like wildfire, and soon every tenant was on high alert. Who was responsible for the mysterious deposits? Accusations flew back and forth, with each tenant blaming the other's children. The landlady, Madame Akosua, held an emergency meeting, declaring that anyone caught leaving such a mess would be evicted immediately. But despite her threats, the culprit remained elusive, and the bathhouse blues continued. One evening, as the sun set and the courtyard filled with the aroma of dinner cooking, Kojo, the resident prankster, had an idea. He discreetly placed a small bowl of mashed bananas in the bathhouse, arranging it to look suspiciously like the offending matter. The next morning, the compound erupted in laughter as tenant after tenant discovered Kojo's trap. The humor of the situation brought some much-needed relief, though the original mystery remained unsolved. Life in the Yard had its moments of frustration, especially when it came to Amina, a little girl with a knack for borrowing anything that wasn't nailed down. At just 8 years old, Amina had earned herself the title of compound thief. She had sticky fingers, and nothing was safe from her, whether it was Kwame's wristwatch, Auntie Easie's cooking spoon, or even Nana's fad charger. One afternoon, Afia was preparing jollof rice in the communal kitchen when she realized her bottle of cooking oil had mysteriously disappeared. Knowing exactly who the culprit was, she marched straight to Amina's mother, Mariam, who was sitting in the courtyard, chatting with other women. "Mariam, please tell your daughter to return my oil before I lose my temper," Afia demanded, hands on her hips. Mariam sighed, clearly embarrassed. "Amina, come here," she called out. A few moments later, Amina appeared, holding the bottle of oil in one hand and a guilty look on her face. "I was just going to borrow it, Auntie," Amina said sweetly, batting her eyelashes. Afia couldn't help but laugh, even as she retrieved her oil. "Next time, ask first," she admonished gently. Despite her mischievous ways, Amina was loved by everyone in the yard. She had an infectious charm, and her antics, while frustrating, often brought a sense of light-heartedness to the compound. The yard was home to a handful of law-abiding tenants who took pride in following the rules. Among them were Auntie Isi and her husband, Uncle Yor, an elderly couple who had the yard for over 3 decades. They were known for their impeccable cleanliness, strict adherence to the compound's rules, and unwavering respect for Madame Akosua. Every morning, Uncle Yor could be seen sweeping the courtyard, his strokes steady and rhythmic, as if performing a well-practiced dance. Auntie Essie, meanwhile, took charge of ensuring that the kitchen area was spotless and that everyone took their turn in cleaning the communal spaces. Their efforts did not go unnoticed. Madame Akosua often praised them as model tenants, and other residents, though sometimes annoyed by their strictness, couldn't help but admire their dedication. Auntie Isi had a habit of gently reminding others to obey the compound rules, a phrase that became her signature catchphrase. One day, when Kojo decided to throw an impromptu party that went well into the night, it was Auntie Isi who knocked on his door at precisely 10 p.m., reminding him that quiet hours had begun. Though Kojo groaned and rolled his eyes, he complied, knowing better than to cross the couple. After all, in the yard, Auntie Isi and Uncle Yor were as respected as the landlady herself. The yard was never short of drama, and a significant source of it was Aqua, a young woman in her mid-20s who lived in one of the back rooms. Aqua was stunningly beautiful, with curves that caught the eyes of every man who entered the compound. She was also known for having a revolving door of visitors, most of whom were men who arrived late at night and left early in the morning. Rumors about Akua's business spread like wildfire. Some tenants whispered about her being a hookup girl, while others claimed otherwise. Either way, her nocturnal activities became a hot topic of discussion among the residents. One evening, as Akua's latest visitor was leaving, Auntie Isi called her and cautioned her about her way of lifestyle and its consequences. Aqua, who was used to such comments, simply smiled and replied, "Auntie, I hear you, but right now, I'm just living my life." The other tenants who overheard the exchange snickered quietly. She had her own reasons for the choices she made, and while she may not have been everyone's cup of tea, she certainly added a bit of spice to life in the yard. Madame Akosua was a force to be reckoned with. A stout woman in her late 50s, she ruled the yard with an iron fist, ensuring that order was maintained at all costs. She had inherited the compound from her late husband and took her responsibilities very seriously. One day, after yet another bathhouse incident and growing tension over Aqua's nighttime visitors, Madame Akosua had had enough. She called a meeting in the courtyard, her voice echoing off the walls as she addressed the tenants. "From now on," she declared, "anyone who disrespects this compound's rules will face the consequences." She paused, letting her words sink in, and that includes the bathroom slippers and the visitors. The tenants exchanged nervous glances, knowing that Madame Akosua wasn't one to make empty threats. Even Kwame, who had grown accustomed to the strange slipper rule, found himself nodding in agreement. Aqua, however, merely shrugged and returned to her room, unfazed by the landlady's decree. As time went on, despite the constant wahala, the tenants of the yard began to develop a bond. They shared meals, celebrated holidays together, and helped each other out during tough times. Kwame, who had once grumbled about the bathroom slippers, found himself laughing along with Kojo at the absurdity of it all. Afia, despite her initial disgust, learned to let go of the small annoyances, focusing instead on the community they had built. Even Nana, the newcomer, became part of the group, despite being initially reserved and quiet. He gradually opened up, joining in on the evening storytelling sessions and contributing to the upkeep of the compound. The yard, with all its quirks and chaos, became more than just a place to live. It became a family. The residents, though different in many ways, learned to coexist and support one another. They found comfort in the shared experiences and the bonds they created, making the yard a place of laughter, love, and unforgettable.